Let me start by saying that this is not a Universes Beyond hate video. I actually think that the Miku deck is Universes Beyond at its best, optional skins for those who enjoy them. And it's great that the deck is print to demand for 24 hours. I wish there was a longer window, but this is still a huge improvement over what happened before. I'm not here to talk about other logistical or monetary issues either. Today, I only care about gameplay. This video is about the actual deck construction of the Hatsune Miku Secret Lair Commander deck and why it's incredibly confusing to me and embarrassing for wizards. This is a Celestia deck helmed by Trostani Celestia's Voice. Trostani Celestia's Voice is a 4-mana 2/5 that, whenever another creature we control enters, gives us life equal to that creature's toughness, and that we can tap for 3 mana to populate. Populating lets us create a copy of a creature token we control. Trostani costs 4 mana, but it's noteworthy that those 4 mana are all colored pips, meaning that she can be kind of difficult to cast. Trostani as a commander is sort of split in two, but both ideas are actually somewhat closely related. Her populate ability is quite expensive and limited, so it's best used on a big creature token that's actually worth copying. Unlike most token decks, Trostani really wants to go tall rather than wide. Big, strong tokens rather than many. And this then plays nicely into her life gain, which scales with the size of the creature. Now, to be fair, her life gain ability also works with lots of tokens rather than just big ones, but then her populate starts being a bit clunky, so we really want to focus on the big tokens. Looking at the deck, it has quite a few cards that play into this idea. Crested Sunmare, Galta and Mavren, Phyrexian Processor, and lots of others all let us create fairly large creature tokens, and Growing Ranks, Wristly Redeemed, Song of the World Soul, as well as a few more, let us then copy those tokens. This is all fine, this is what should be in the deck. But have a look at how incredibly expensive these mana costs are. Every step is mana hungry. This deck plays 34 lands. 34! I don't think even Panzer would play 34 lands in a deck like this. And it's not just that it's 34 lands, but it's really shit lands. Keep in mind that Trostani requires 4 colored mana to be cast, and the deck is firmly built around Trostani. But this deck plays Gavany Township, Grove of the Guardian, Croson Wurch, Lazotep Quarry, Radiant Fountain, Rogue's Passage, and Seraph Sanctuary. 7 of its 34 lands are colorless lands. That is over 20% of all the lands in the deck. And it's not even that these are particularly powerful colorless lands. Like, I can kind of forgive Croson Wurch because at least it ramps, and I guess Radiant Fountain gains life, but why are we playing Gavany Township? As we already established, this deck is incredibly mana hungry, so we really shouldn't have 5 mana lying around for a couple of +1/+1 counters, which also aren't at all synergistic with the deck, because it should already be focusing on primarily big creatures rather than many. Now, there's one way I can forgive a low land count, and that is if a deck plays a lot of cheap card draw. Always remember that ramp can't replace lands, but card draw can. I do a lot of deck reviews for my Patreon supporters, link down below, you can get one too if you want. And one of my standard procedures when doing a deck review is that I go through the list and I categorize it. Usually I group things into card advantage, ramp, interaction, finishers, and synergy enablers. I like being very broad when applying these categories to give as much benefit of a doubt as I can. I did the same with this deck. And even with my most generous interpretation possible, I arrived at only 8 cards that provide any sort of card advantage. And honestly, I'm being way too generous there. I'm counting Cultivate, Healing Technique, and Breakdown. Look, when we're dealing with like 20+ pieces of card advantage spread across a deck, I do actually think it's fine to count these types of cards because they're part of a larger whole. But Cultivate can't be our load-bearing card draw, that's unhinged. You might also notice something else that's weird about this selection. Camaraderie, Halo Fountain, Shamanic Revelation, and Skull Clamp are all synergistic with go wide token strategies, not go tall. This is where you're expecting the plot twist that this deck has a significant go wide package, but it doesn't? I guess there's Stormherd, Elenda's Hierophant, but the only way to sacrifice it is Lazotep Quarry? Do Galta and Mavren count? Surely Grand Crescendo and Pest Infestation aren't what we expected to use to get tokens, because in what world do we have enough mana to pay for high X-cost spells? I'm losing my mind. Now, to be fair, the deck plays a good amount of ramp, but ramp without card draw just isn't good. You're usually just ramping into the lands that you missed. Why is there no Garruk's Uprising or Rishkar's Expertise in this list? I don't get it. Wouldn't Last March of the Ents be a perfect reprint here? Maybe they don't want to cross-pollinate universes beyond? Is that the problem? What a horrible hole they've dug themselves into. Looking at the list, I genuinely couldn't believe how terrible it was. So, I tried it. I just took the deck onto MTGO to play a couple of games. Sometimes decks play way better than they read. Maybe this is one of them. But to even do that, we first have to think about a new problem. Which bracket does this deck even fall into? It doesn't have any game changes, but it does play Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, who is technically MLD. I mean, not proper MLD, but kind of, right? So, is this bracket 4? I mean, no, it's not. It's obviously not. But am I supposed to now go into bracket 2 and play Sol Ring into Vorinclex and pretend that's okay? I don't know what they were thinking, and the article doesn't mention anything about brackets, so I just settled on the middle ground and played bracket 3. Not that it really mattered. I played 4 full Magic the Gathering Commander games, and I was the most non-factor imaginable. The deck plays worse than it reads. It just doesn't do anything. I often had to mulligan down to 5/4/4 just to get a remotely playable hand, because there's only 27 lands in the deck that are actually worth keeping, and the average mana value is 3.57. There are also just so many dead cards, like for example Ajani's Pridemate. This might be a controversial opinion, but I do actually think that Ajani's Pridemate is a reasonable card in Soul Sister style life gain decks with lots of individual life gain triggers, which this is not. This deck tends to only have a few big life gain triggers, which then give us 1+1+1 counter. I don't understand how this deck is so incredibly unfocused. It genuinely feels like the creator just went on the EDH rec pages for Tristani and life gain synergies and then just took the top cards. And to put on my tinfoil, if you go check, you see a lot of this deck there. Except they actually play Return of the Wild Speaker. Now, when I say that I was keeping remotely playable hands, I was really keeping hands that played a card at some point. I did nothing in any of these games. I can't tell you how the deck plays because it just straight up does not play. The Hatsune Miku Secret Lair Commander deck is the worst Commander deck that Wizards has released in a really long time. It is worse than all of the recent precons, and when I say recent, I'm talking about the last couple of years. Worse than this context means that it's not a playable deck. It doesn't fit into any of the brackets, it's frustrating to play because there isn't close to enough card draw, so everything depends on your top decks, and your top decks suck because the synergies in the deck are too thin and too weakly supported to enable each other, and its mana base is simply criminal. This deck list is embarrassing. I can't believe that someone would willingly put this out there with their name on it. Now, why does this matter? The article announcing this deck list included a quick aside about the new print-to-demand window, in which the Hatsune Miku deck was described as a fully playable product. Fully playable. And this is technically true. This deck is legal to play in Commander, and if you get really lucky, you might even be able to participate in a game. But is that the bar we should expect Wizards to meet? In my eyes, this deck is not playable. I tried to make it playable by rebuilding it, but that process required replacing such a significant portion of the deck that it was basically a new list. So I gave up on that idea. I also had to do annoying things like add more basic lands, which would mean that we have to play some non-Miku basics, and that's not ideal if you bought this deck for the Miku artwork. If I was a Miku stan, I would certainly find that disappointing. This secret lair is really just a bundle of Miku artwork cards that come with a terrible selection of singles attached. Ultimately, I have to recommend against buying this. Unless you really like the artworks, then this might still be worth it for you just for the singles, and honestly, those cards are probably going to end up very expensive rather quickly, so it might even pay for itself. But don't try to play this out of the box, you're going to have a miserable time. All of this brings up some very interesting questions. Is this how Wizards wants us to experience Commander? is this how they experience it? The Goblin Storm deck was oddly similar. I tested that one too, although I didn't make a video on it. Well, I did make a video, but it's on Patreon. I didn't make it public because I thought it was just one bad deck. Is that really worth talking about? But Goblin Storm shares a lot of its issues with the Hatsune Miku list. It was also mostly dependent on its top decks, it required its commander to function at all, and its entire focus was on synergy pieces with basically no space left for anything else. At least that one had 36 lands. Ugh. Why is it so hard to just play enough lands? I get that for secret layers the people actually kind of want less lands because then that means more cards. But come on, I would rather take more Hatsune Miku lands than whatever bulk trash they're gonna add in its place. Point being, why is the experience Wizards seem to expect for Commander so different from my lived experience? This is not what Commander decks look like. Unless we're talking about truly beginner players, Commander decks in all brackets are much more resilient and diverse than this. They actually play into action and counter, and their synergies aren't solely dependent on their commander. What truly worries me is that the target audience for these decks might actually be beginner players. Can you imagine this being the first experience you have with Commander? Are they trying to drive people away? It's just so strange to me. Building a proper functional deck wouldn't cost them more money. I'm not asking that they include more valuable reprints. There it's actually quite well supplied, but rather that the deck be built sensibly. That's a reasonable expectation for a fully playable $160 Commander deck, and it's actually more expensive than that because it's really like €180. They sell them for more here, and like €180 more like $200. How much is €180? Yeah, that's $208. What is this bullshit? There are really only two possible explanations I can see here. First, the people making these decks might just not actually play much Commander and are pretty bad at the game. This is their sincere best attempt, but they just don't know what they're doing. That would be embarrassing. Or second, this is malicious in some way. The deck is intentionally built to be bad to deliver a negative experience. Maybe they assume that since the player is already so invested by spending $160 on it, they'll be much more likely to try and salvage the list. But then I don't see why they didn't leave more obvious upgrade paths as they do with their regular precons. It's all very strange to me. I don't understand why they couldn't build the deck better. Like, that's the thing that I don't get. Like, I fully understand if they don't want to put more valuable reprints in there, right? Like, you might say, oh, for the mana base, why isn't there shock and fetch lands? Like, why don't they reprint OG duels in the Hatsune Miku secret lair land base? And look, we all know why, right? Like, they don't want to, like, reduce the market value of those cards. Whatever. I'm not asking for that. Give me cheap cards that make the deck function. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I find it so strange. And I wanted to make a video about it because I kind of wanted to warn you all a little bit because people are really excited about the deck because like, hey, you know, it's available for 24 hours. You can actually buy it. But you're buying trash. If you like the singles, then of course, like, go ahead, right? Like, that's your prerogative. That's fine. But just know that the deck plays like shit. It is so bad. And it is so weird to me how bad it is. Like, that's the part I don't understand. How and why is it so bad? It can't be that this is the best they can do. I just don't want to believe that. I do not want to believe that this is the best they can do. But the only other explanation I have is some sort of like malicious incentive. And I haven't quite fully figured out what that is yet. But it's just very strange to me. There are so many talented deck builders in the community as well. Like, can't they just outsource this a little bit? I don't know. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just wanted to talk about this. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. There is a link to my Patreon in the description. Please support me there. And I'll see you guys. Goodbye.